Hello everyone, Kenti Tiger here with Bengali Engineering and Play. We are back in Elder Scrolls Online. This is my main character, DoKenti. Obviously a tiger-furred Khajiit. So we are kind of doing some testing. So as I scream out of here. So check my list. So today's project has been harvesting, so going around collecting everything I can find, which kind of goes along with just my normal adventuring kind of stuff. I'm also looking for. So one of the things, let me go ahead and bring up inventory. You can see all of these surveys. So a bazillion surveys here, and it's actually quite a few less than I had, because I spent yesterday, well, a couple hours yesterday, last night, and then a couple hours this morning, actually going through and burning those guys. So I have quite a few left, as you can see. If my list is indeed correct, I have Cold Harbor, Craglorn, and Rothgar are all that I have left. So that's my list. So let me see. Rothgar is 7. I have 7 surveys there. Some of them are probably repeats, so you have to walk away and come back. Cold Harbor is 8. And Craglorn is 12. So definitely got some work to do. Having said that, we'll go outside, head to Rothgar. I tend to not like Rothgar because they used to put things up on the sides of hills and stuff, and you have to roam around and pretty much go around the entire hill just to figure out where the hell everything is. So let's go to Rothgar. Oh wow, you can see a bunch of them. So there's 6 of them showing, it looks like. 7 of them showing. So it may be a challenge to get to, maybe not. So I'm gonna go ahead and go down to that one first. Let me see if we have 6 and we have 7. There's actually let's count that again. So we have 6, 7. No, they're all separate. So that should make it easy to know when we're done. So some of the other testing here that is going on is audio testing. So what I did, so as I've described in the past, I have 2 different machines running here. So there's actually the machine that is running the game. And then stealing somebody's butterflies there. Oops. So I've found about every 6th one. Oh, here's a troll. I'm kind of going the wrong way here, but this is part of that collecting. So I wrote down. I'm still working on my Grand Master Collector, and to put that all in perspective, under Journal, and we go to Achievements, Crafting. It's under General, and we scroll down here, and here's a Grand Master Crafting Harvester. So I have 9717. So to put that in perspective, when I started yesterday, so 9717, so I'm very close, within 300 of making that goal. I started out at 9265, and I've done approximately half of the, well, a little less than half. Nope, sorry, a little more than half. Apologize. Get my counts. There was about 50 surveys in total. So I collect them from all the characters, and then DoKenti does them because he's the crafter of the group. So anyway, the goal here is within 300. If realistically 250, and I'm almost at 750, so about 500. So if I'm a little less than half left, then hopefully we'll get somewhere. So I'm hoping to achieve that particular goal. So anyway, more butterflies again. My general thing here that I've seen, there's a butterfly wing, so that did follow through. So my typical thing is about every 5 butterflies end up with. All right, so these guys, not that I have anything against these guys. It's just their experience points, so I like doing the experience points. And speaking of experience points, let me go ahead and go in here. Obviously I need to fix my swords plural, so F soul gem, I have a couple of those. Make sure that is F soul gem charge. I'm gonna go over to C and see where our stats are at. So I've got 5 minutes left on the increased experience. Increase all primary stats, which is a food thing, so I've got 25 minutes there. Increased experience, which is a boost to those. So that's going to run out in a very few minutes, so I just have to kind of remember, and I tend to go zooming everywhere, brain doing the zoom thing. Well, being as it is. So what I was saying earlier about audio, so I run 2 different machines. One is actually dedicated to doing the capture. That seems a bit eccentric and wasteful, but I have I build machines. I try and build a new machine about every 2 years. Why 2 years? Is that a mystical, magical date? No. In fact, if you think about technologies over the years, especially as things really get moving, your technologies double about every 18 months, give or take. Trending being what it is over the last probably 20, 30 years of computing, then we've seen capabilities double about every 18 months. What does that really mean? Well, that means technologies, as they are, get quite a bit better. Again, this is just experience points. So even though I'm kind of wasting a lot of proverbial time, if you have anything playing this game, is time. Obviously, you're not doing something else while you're playing the game, right? So I am not only collecting things. So if you see over there to the left, forward left, is stuff. So again, one of the things I'm doing as I'm roaming around is just collecting everything I can find. And over the years, they have really dramatically improved the game as far as the stuff that you can find, where you find it. So I'm really impressed in that respect. Game. Here's a chest up here. Most of the time, I rather despise chests. Oh, okay. I guess the chest bear. It's a bear chest. No pun intended. Advanced. I probably won't be able to do this, but. Hey, look at that. And yes, I have a cheat around. Because lockpicking in the game is much different than lockpicking in the real world. And yes, I have worked legitimately as a locksmith. I used to do design, which is to say large facilities key design. So basically you could have master keys and submasters and that sort of thing. So that was one of the things that I used to do in my long, illustrious career of work. So, back to audio test and computers. Babble, and then I eventually loop back around to what I was talking about. So, having two computers, the video capture machine actually is the old game machine. It's totally overkill. It was like a second generation i7, 3.4 gig clock. I am still, I think, no, I am going the right way now. Imagine that. Water. See a backpack over to the right. Oh, and a troll. And a chest. So, audio. One of the things, so the audio is, well, the original design was that the audio, sorry, wrong button, oops, simple. Sometimes you get some okay stuff and sometimes it's just blah. Oh, okay. I want the heavy sack. A ruby ash. And the backpack is empty. Oops. Oh, look at that. So, the way the original sound stuff was designed was obviously the mic plugged into the game machine, and then everything was happening on there. When I started doing video stuff, then there was the matter of how to get microphone audio from the microphone onto the game machine over onto the video capture machine. And that turned out to be problematic because sending the audio through the mixer didn't always go as intended. Single source audio going across, I could get the game audio, but getting the mic audio to actually go across in the interconnectors did not work. I just could not figure out how to make it work. So there was really a lot of problems in trying to figure it out. So what I ended up doing is just deciding, okay, I'm gonna just completely change things, and I will run audio separately. So my game audio would come out, go into a mixer, my mic audio would come out, go into the mixer, and then the mixed output of sound from the mixer would go to the line in on the capture machine. And poof, it all worked very well. Very well, which is to say I could now get those sound sources into the video capture machine. Now, did it always work out well? No. so it took a little while, obviously, to get the volume up to where it needed to be. And there was a lot of playing, a lot of experimenting, and figuring all that out. That experimenting has actually continued a little bit. So one of the things that I found to be oh yeah, let's hack that. One of the things that I where's this actor? So getting all those different audio settings and everything up to where they really needed to be was really the challenge of it all. So one of the things I discovered, in fact, very recently, as I was playing with the audio, mostly in Space Engineers, there's just this digital buzzing, bizarre stuff in the background, excuse me, that I couldn't begin to explain. But it was clearly originating on the game machine, because as Space Engineers would do, what Space Engineers does, then I would hear those little digital things come and go as the game, came in and went, and did its weird stuff. It would, the buzzing would start and stop with the game freezing and unfreezing, and so I was like, okay, I definitely have an audio problem, microphone problem on, or at least related to the game machine. So then it was the matter of how do I track that down and figure out what it is. So it really was the matter of entirely ripping the audio system apart, or systems rather, completely apart, and starting over. Just unplugging everything, piling all the cables, in the middle of the floor, and starting over again. And it worked. So the first iteration of that, or actually worked several different ways. So the first iteration of that was actually to install the second microphone. So basically, so right now, it's wired back to the original configuration, which is to say the configuration using one microphone, which actually splits through an actual splitter, microphone, low impedance splitter, to send it to two different sources, or two different destinations. So I went back to that, but what I ended up doing was actually one microphone. The microphones I'm using, you can kind of see it. Let me just move it out here. So this is a CAD GXL, I'm going to read it off the side, GXL 2200. It's an older microphone, but I have found it to be really good. Now, one of the issues with the condenser microphones, for those of you who know anything about higher level audio, especially if you've ever done any work in studio church, anything that actually is more specialized public address type microphoning. So when I was in college, I did stage, including, in fact, I still have it. I totally dating myself here. It's been 30-something years. So yeah, let me go ahead and date myself. Let me see. One of my longer stints in college was 86, 87, 88, and so I did drama and stage, both acting, directing, and one of the things that, not necessarily because I enjoyed it, although I did, was we did not have very many people who could do stage and audio management. And so I would very frequently step out of the actual stage direction role into more background roles, I want to say. So things like soundstage, how to get all of the sounds picked up so the audience can hear the actors, that sort of thing. So I focused a bit more on that. I loved directing. Directing was a lot of fun because you can put a lot of creative energy into it. I really will get back to the microphone thing. But by the same token, there was a real need, and there is somewhat of an art to miking, especially in a very large room, like the rooms that typically house a stage. So, you know, there were all those kinds of issues and dynamics, and I learned an awful lot when I was doing soundstage, and I grew up doing church audio. So that was carry over into, you know, understanding the dynamics, the sound dynamics of a very large room, how to mic it. You know, when you've got somebody standing at the pulpit, that's one thing that's pretty easy because they're in one place. If you're doing much more specialized soundstage, where you've got a bunch of people, and more importantly, people who are moving, who are not in a stationary position, then makes a little bit of a difference. Changes the dynamics by quite a bit. Oh, butterfly. So back to the audio. I tend to like, especially for voice, a large diaphragm microphone. The reason I like the large diaphragm microphones, there's downsides. Some of the large diaphragm microphones tend to pick up everything, and if that's not something that you want, if you have a lot of activity going on in a room, then it can be absolutely dreadful. You'll hear the refrigerator going in the other room. So it's kind of one of those things that it depends on the environment you're in. But as I said, I prefer the large diaphragm microphones. One of the other things that for voice, large diaphragm. One of the other things to consider is going dynamic condenser, or any of the dozen other mechanisms for audio, for microphone audio. The thing that I like about the condenser microphones is they're much more sensitive to things. So they have a reasonably broad dynamic range. They can be very sensitive to picking up voice. I've always found them to have a higher voice quality, which of course for video recording is a good thing. So my basic format here is how to power a condenser microphone. If you have not heard the term phantom power, then I know I'm going to be speaking the proverbial Greek to you. But, so, oh, look at that. So, in this case, a condenser microphone is a powered microphone. It has to have a power source. Now, they've got a variety of ways to do that. And one of the ways, it's called phantom power, which is typically provided over the line by some device, normally the mixer. The mixer that you've got the microphone plugged into. A lot of mixers, I don't want to say it's standard because that's not necessarily true, but I want to say any of the reasonably high-end, medium to high-end mixers are going to have phantom power. Now they may not have phantom power across all of the capable inputs, the XLR inputs, but they'll have quite a few of them. Usually, you know, 4. If you've got 8 inputs, you'll have at least 4 of them on phantom power. By the numbers, phantom power supply is a 48 volt. It's a very low amperage, you know, so there's very little voltage or very little, dare I say, electrons on the wire. It's a DC voltage, a very, very flat DC, because obviously it's riding on the same wire as the audio. So if you were to have that interact with the audio, then you have a buzz of some kind, which of course kind of defeats the purpose of having good quality audio. So in my case, what I have, and I punched the Q button in there, which I did not want to do. There it was. So what I have is my microphone. The microphone goes to a single box phantom power supply, so basically an in-out. So the audio comes in from the microphone, power goes out to the microphone over the same wire, and ultimately that DC voltage is filtered off, and then you have just straight audio coming out, and that audio can then be used for whatever. In my case, the original was to run the audio from the phantom power supply into the game machine, because, you know, using you know, voice chat and all that sort of thing, had to have a microphone, had to have some sort of input there. When I started doing the video, then obviously that whole dynamic changed a little bit, and I needed to start moving. We have a water hyacinth over here, and over here. So what I did was buy a isolation splitter. And what the isolation splitter does is it can, okay, what did I miss? Where did that, that's why I'm not at the bridge. Momentary lapse in visual cues there. So in this case, the alteration was now I need to run the microphone audio to 2 different places. So after I break off from the phantom power supply, so filtered, no DC on it, no direct current on there, that 48 volt is gone, send it to the isolation splitter, so now it keeps the impedance correct. So it was very important. You lose, so when you're talking low impedance devices, bear's already dead. There's the bear. The upside to the low impedance audio, the microphones and that sort of thing, are you get much better. I mean, let's face it, you're talking about an alternating current on a wire. Very, very low voltage. So impedance, now there's a lot of characteristics, and again, I apologize for speaking the proverbial Greek at you, but impedance effectively reduces down to some type of resistance. Voltage minus resistance or plus resistance, however you want to look at it. Voltage drops over resistance. That's the whole, you know, basic you know, theory of Ohm's law, that we're going to have a loss at some point of voltage across. Oops. Okay. Basic electric theory, right? Basic electronics theory is that I have a voltage, it's going to be dropped over the course of a circuit. So from positive to negative, I have 100% loss in my voltage. Now, while that's not really true, and you can argue electron flow or hole flow, again, if those terms don't mean anything to you, sorry about that. Go and total engineer on you. So the idea is that the higher the resistance of your audio signal, the higher the voltage really needs to be from the microphone to get to where it needs to go. And the problem with a higher resistive load, such as a higher impedance, then you start to lose that audio quality, which is definitely what you do not want. You want to keep that audio quality up. Low Z, low impedance. So using all balanced connectors, XLR connectors coming out, so into the phantom power supply and back out is all XLR for me. Proteon, so I'm at 2. So there's always 6. So that was 2. Here is number 3. Number 4. Number 5. And that should be number 6. Number 6. Okay, now one of the things you notice on the mini-map is the X marks the spot, disappeared. So when you do not have a duplicate, then that's going to disappear when you are harvesting the third of 6. Alright, so out of the phantom power supply into the isolation splitter to maintain impedance, correct impedance. And then from the splitter goes back to the game machine, so I can still do voice chat if I need to. And then the other side, in fact the isolation side, goes to the mixer, which goes into the game machine, or sorry, the video capture machine. Elk game, yes. So one of the things I noticed in the grand scheme of things when I removed all of the gibberish. So the mixer that I have can do phantom power. And so what I had effectively done is removed the, when I changed things, I had removed the phantom power supply. Obviously it's got a filter, so you're going to lose a slight amount of audio there. Man, I got so many. I like it, but it's just like every time butterfly. The butterfly wings are actually pretty valuable. We'll look at that here in a minute. Maybe, if I remember. Alright, so running directly from the microphone using the phantom power supply on the mixer, I actually had a really high dB level on the microphone, which wasn't unexpected. Obviously running through 2 devices, while it's not really electrically true, they say every connection is a minus 3 dB loss. Now what does 3 dB mean? Decibels. What does that really mean in terms of anything? So 3 dB is a 50% loss or 50% gain, depending on. So if you say it is a plus 3 dB, you're talking about 100% gain in your signal. If you are talking about a loss of 3 dB, it's cut your signal in half. So 50%. And I know those numbers sound really, really silly, but so I'm doubling or halving depending on which direction I'm going. So do some research, and I know that may be a little bit of a challenge to understand how something that's 50% in one direction can be 100% in the other direction, but you're talking if you think about things in terms of the end signal. So if the end signal on the downside is 50%, then that's also true if you look at the end signal when you are going up. So the end signal is double what the original signal was. And if you look at that in terms of the end signal, then the original signal based on the end signal being 50% is half. So it all works out. It's all scalar, linear scalar. So all right, okay. I guess I can just walk up to some of these other ones. We'll use the built-in system here. We'll go there. That'll lead me to 2 of them, maybe 3. So had much better audio signal going directly into the mixer, but the downside was now I needed a second microphone to do the original audio onto the gain machine. So not a bad idea, because you actually end up with that isolator. The isolator is a dB loss. There's no two ways about it. It's you're taking a signal, you're balancing it, you're putting it through a balancing transformer. In fact, 2 transformers. Oh, look at that. Oh, let's hack that instead of pick it up. So that I think represents my larger dB loss. Going through 2 devices now, I'm noticing the audio difference. So what I really have to do is that the mic audio, I have to jack it up in the mixer a little bit more. The good news is that all the rewiring and changing things around and moving stuff. In fact, I haven't plugged in the original computer again, the game machine, which the cable is just sitting on the floor right now, which may be why the audio has changed in quality a little bit, but I do see the decibel loss, so I am noticing on the mixer I do have to jack it up a little bit. So anyway, the long story short here is that I am back to my original design scheme, where I have the splitter going from 1 microphone. So why was 2 microphones a problem? My microphone is on one of these arms. Let me see if I can swing it. Nope, can't see it. It's on one of these suspension arms, spring-loaded suspension arms that holds its weight and lets me adjust pretty flexibly. But probably a duh moment, but I'll go ahead and say it, is it's designed for one microphone. It's not designed for the weight of two microphones. Now, if I had small microphones or something like that, then that maybe maybe would be different. But these are pretty good-sized microphones, as you can see in the webcam there. So the fact that those are as large as they are, there was a certain amount of weight, so I had to really tweak down on the suspension elbows. Sorry about that. Coughing, choking there. So given the size of these microphones, then putting an extra weight onto a device designed to hold one microphone was a bit of a problem. Pardon me. So I had to rethink that. I had all the equipment to do it, but it turned out to be a little bit problematic to the point where I didn't think it was going to work out well. Now, I may orbit back around to the same thing because I don't necessarily like the loss of quality in the voice. Now I can make up for it again, made up for it in the mixer, but I still haven't plugged the audio back into the game machine, or rather the microphone audio back into the game machine. So there still may be the presence of this buzzing, which is gone right now, but the other factor there is that I am not playing Space Engineers. I have not noticed that in ESO in the past. It doesn't mean it's not there, it just means I didn't notice it. So it may be a Space Engineers fluke. I was playing Space Engineers and listening, doing some balancing, and I didn't hear it. But that was, again, because I had just completely ripped all the wiring out. And let's deal with that bear. Whoa! So, with audio being almost back to the original design norm, if the buzzing is not there, so I think I got rid of the 60 hertz buzz, which was there the other day. That was the big gripe that I had, was I could hear the 60 hertz buzz. So I had something screwed up, which is really to say I had a microphone cable very close to one of the transformers, one of the power supplies, switching power supplies. So figuring that aspect out was pretty important. All right, so cut back across this way. So now I think I've got the audio back to where it really needs to be. So it's of sufficient quality that I'm reasonably happy with it. Whether I actually continue with it in this configuration or shift to something else is left to be seen. But there's a butterfly. Really, as I don't really want to get into a tangle with the boss that you see on the screen that I'm pointed right towards, then I kind of have to move my way around it. 2 in a row. So, a couple things here. Whoa, even another one down there. So again, DoKenti picking up pretty much anything that's not bolted down. Have run out here. I did forget in all my babble to but the good news is I can do that while I have a moment. So I need to feed myself, which is that one there, and then I have these crown potions, or I have some Siddhika Ambrosia, which are basically the same thing. 2 hours versus half hour. So I might as well burn those. Either way, it's a 50% increase. Alright, it's not what I wanted. Somebody in a cage there, one here. There's a barrel there and a sack. So let's see what. Empty barrel. Dismantle. Fire. Most of the in-world loot, if you dismantle it, just the stuff laying around, you get absolutely nothing, so probably not going to be very productive. Alright, so I think I've wandered around. There's anything down here. Entrance to something there. Of any kind, darn. Alright, so let's go over here. It's probably up on. Yep, there we go. Butterfly. Okay, and you notice the red X disappeared off the mini-map, which means there is no duplicate here. And I think we figured out, if my numbers were all correct, there was only 7 here anyway, which were all spread out. Kind of interesting that they numbered the Hrothgar surveys, so they were all different. Alright, so collect this, and then we're going to turn right to basically get towards another source of experience points here. So moving towards the waypoint point over there in the distance that you can see. If I can see any other items to collect. Some more experience here. Push the right button. Two of these guys here. Snap on my Alright, I think Ancestor Silk there. Oh, wow, butterfly and something. Ruby ash. Butterfly. Some mushroom thing. Imp stool. Butterfly. And I think I'm just going to go, because if I stay here, I'm just going to stay collecting and everything. So we've got two directions we can go. I think this is the more direct route. So we'll go there. I think I have two left here. Some people have asked me why I don't use mounts. The reason why I don't use mounts is because, let's take just into consideration, we've got a giant over here, we've got two butterflies that we can see. So I would literally mount up, ride about, 2 seconds, and then dismount just to do the collection here. So I just run everywhere. And it's down this little road. So I'm going to divert. One, two, three, four, five. One of these is not a protein. Well, one of them wasn't. Alright. Let's do the map. So, I've only got one left. So the question is, do I wander here just to jump there to go there? Or do I just hit the road and wander around? Because by the time I really loop back around, I'm going to end up wasting time anyway. That's an interesting predicament, because that's a long ways down. I don't think there's anything I can do about that one. Yep, that's a long ways down. So, divert. That's a stinkhorn. And there's... Zog. All for a cornflower. Orient here. I think there's an achievement for how many rabbits you can kill. Never really pursued that one. Okay, which means I need to teleport to that one, which then takes me on the road and I think up towards where I need to go. Alright, so hit the road and go across and up. And then that should be the last one in Hrothgar. Guy with magic swords fighting with you. Sure, there's a lot of loot there, but I see something over here. What is this? More ancestor silk. So I think one of the tricks in this game is just to be on a swivel all the time. One of the terms we use in the military is keep your head on a swivel. And what does that really mean? I know that sounds kind of silly, but what that really means is keep yourself very aware of what's happening in every direction around you. So thus swivel. Obviously there's a lot of things that in the military that situational awareness, another military term which has creeped now into the civilian world. What do those terms really mean? Situation, what's going on around you, obviously is something that's going to be very paramount with your action, whether it be issues of safety, issues of other members of your party, you know, detachment, whatever you want to call it. So being aware of what's going on around you then equates to hopefully your ability to be able to deal with it in an expeditious and reasonable manner. Obviously, if you don't know about something, then it can sneak up and bite you in the ass. Not a very good thing when it comes to the military. Especially when people's lives, you know, may depend upon your actions or your awareness of things that are going on around you. So, I find that I can apply an awful lot of real world tactics in the game just by being aware of what's going on around me. And I tend to, and it's probably annoying from a video perspective because, you know, you're trying to focus on something on the screen and I'm rotating all the way around here as I'm traveling in a particular direction and probably just driving all of you folks absolutely batshit crazy, you know, trying to get a focus on something. But, you know, the bottom line is I'm really just trying to be aware of where I am. There we go. So I would not have seen this. I would have just marched right past that and that one, just by rotating around and taking a little better look. And there's another one over there. Now I'm going completely the opposite direction that I need to go. And of course there's those two enemies behind me to the left, which I'm going to go ahead and deal with these guys. Experience points. Actually, with them coming apart, I can deal with them one at a time. There's actually 3 of them. Oh, wow, okay. These guys are going to be a little bit of a challenge here. Just for the sake of experience points there, because whenever I'm doing things with DoKenti, and I mean, this is not the, you know, normal adventuring kind of a thing. This is, you know, just collecting surveys. I still try and get some experience points. As you've noticed in my video list, I don't play a whole lot. I mean, I do dailies, but you know, I can't really video dailies and put them up because that would just be boring as well shit. So I try and do reasonably entertaining things, even though I guess this isn't terribly entertaining, all things considered either. But listening to me babble about audio and everything while I'm playing the game. Off chance that we get that wing. Stool. And something right ahead here. There they are. There's one. Bear. Polar bears. Experience. All right. Alright, so I think, let me see, I'm at about my hour point, so I think this is probably a great place to break so I don't bore you completely to death. So we will sign off here and continue on with DoKenti's adventures in the next one. So we will see you next time.